Right. Thank you. Good evening, Africa. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on tonight's episode of Africa Diaspora TV show, the show that's about people, innovation, creativity, and development. And today, even as we come around, even talking about what Africans are doing generally, we are particularly mindful that today, being the 16th of June here in South Africa, it's also referred to as the Youth Day. And we will also be having some conversations around that and what young Africans are doing, even for the benefit of Africa. As always, your host here, Toye Abioye from our Johannesburg studio. And we will take a break after this time out, and we will be introducing our guests who will be speaking to us about some of the things that young people are doing on Youth Day here in South Africa and generally even across Africa for Africa's development. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back after this time out.
After backing 5 of his 13 nominations for his character Agu in the Netflix movie Beasts of No Nation, Ghanaian star Abraham Atta has gotten more recognition, this time in academics. He was awarded the Scholastic Improvement Award for ending the year with a 4.0 GPA at Cheshire University in the United States. His Booksmart will, however, go on a break for some more cinematic appearances, as he is set to star in several movies, including the upcoming second reboot of the Spider-Man franchise, Spider-Man Homecoming, Christian Lubeck's upcoming feature film, Buffalo, and Shane Carruth's third film, The Modern Ocean. La Liga is coming to Nigeria. Last month, the top league of Spanish football launched their very first football academy in the UAE, and now they've turned their attention to Nigeria. To achieve this, they plan to partner with sports marketing outfit Legacy Sports to facilitate the growth of the Spanish league in Nigeria. According to the CEO of Legacy Sports, Philip Diwan, more than that, we also plan to start a football academy in Lagos this year. The academy will take care of players who show potential in both soccer as well as academics, and they will also offer them full scholarship to further their education while they play. There are also plans to have the La Liga trophy tour Nigeria this year, a grand viewing of the El Clasico with 10,000 fans and present La Liga ambassadors, and a La Liga Legends match against Nigerian legends. 7 Nigerians have been elected into the UK Parliament. The Nigerian federal government has congratulated 7 British Nigerians, namely Chi Onwura, Kate Osamo, Kemi Badenoch, Bim Afolani, Chuka Umunna, Fiona Onasoya, and Helen Grant, who were elected into UK Parliament last week. The Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, Abike Dabiri, released a congratulatory letter to the new inductees. According to Dabiri, this electoral victory shows that Nigerians excel anywhere in the world. Salute to a legend. Usain Bolt won his last 100-meter race in Kingston, Jamaica a few days ago as he prepares for retirement from racing in August 2017. The race, against fellow runners Nicole Ashmead, Michael Frater, Nesta Carter, Javon Mindy, and Antiguan Daniel Bailey, saw Usain cross the finish line first at 10 minutes 3 seconds in front of a crowd 30,000 strong. Speaking to BBC, Usain said, "There are no words. From World Juniors, the support that I have been getting from Jamaica has been remarkable. I could not have done this without my parents, my friends, and my best friend, NJ. I want to thank Jamaica. I never expected this. It's big to see everyone turn out. It shows that they appreciated what I did, and it was an honor for me." The 30-year-old has had an amazing career, and we know this isn't the last we'll hear from him. Nigeria is now on Twitter with the handle @Nigeria. Other countries on Twitter, like Sweden, Israel, Ukraine, have reached out via Twitter to congratulate Nigeria on her foray into the Twitterverse. Nigeria's bio reads, "Discover Africa's most populous country and largest economy," and will be handled by various Nigerians at different times, showing her diversity in culture, politics, nature, art, and people.
Right, welcome back and thanks for staying with us on Africa Diaspora TV. Toye Abioye, your host here from our studios in Johannesburg. Well, I guess this evening is a young African, a Pan-Africanist, if I may say so. But before I do that introduction, I'd like to introduce us to this quote. And I don't know whether you've seen this quote before by Tupac Shakur. Today happens to be his birthday as well, as we celebrate even the Youth Month in South Africa, Youth Day, June 16. We're familiar with the stories around June 16 in South Africa, the Soweto riots and all that by young school students. Here we see Tupac says, we do not need more rappers. Says we don't need more basketball players, no more football players. Says we need more thinkers. And on that note, even as we talk about the Youth Day, I'd like to introduce our guest. Our guest is Lebogang Chaka. She is the CEO of Afro Visionary Legacy Limited here in South Africa, and also doubles as the chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki Africa Leadership Institute Alumni Association. And that quote from Tupac is one that I know that resonates with Lebo, and which is why I thought that I might also preface the introduction to that in there. So, but before I get into Lebo talking about that, let us have a bit of info about what she's been up to lately now. But I'll get her to come and talk about that quote shortly after this time, and we'll do a trailblazer now. Thank you, and stay tuned.
She is an outstanding woman of many parts with an impeccable academic excellence and public speaking role. She holds a Master of International Business and a Bachelor of Business and Commons, and has studied African studies to understand the needs of the continent. She has experience from top-tier consulting firms, having worked within the advisory division at Deloitte. She has also extensive experience from Accenture. Her outstanding performance has been rated at the top of her peers at the various consulting firms. The quality of her work has been recognized by the many performance awards she received both locally and internationally. She is the inaugural recipient of the Business Women Association of South Africa Bursary for the year 2016. Lebogang has been profiled for Women's Month alongside women such as Graça Machel in the Winning Women magazine August 2016 City Press edition. Lebogang Chaka is the inaugural chairperson of the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute Alumni Forum. Lebogang serves on the board of Africa Future Dialogue, which is part of the Africa Insights think tank. She is a committed Pan-African academic activist that has committed to traveling the continent and the world, engaging different people from different walks of life on African issues. Lebogang is a passionate speaker, addressing pertinent issues regarding the African continent. Her mastery of public speaking made her to address issues ranging from increasing Africa intra-trade, climate change, and sustainable energy solutions for the continent, African leadership, youth civic engagement to African renaissance within the workplace. Please welcome Lebogang Chaka to Africa Diaspora TV studio.
Right, thank you for joining us and welcome back. So there you have Lebogang Chaka, and she's with us in the studio this evening. And so Lebo, let's talk about Tupac and that quote. I know that it resonates with you. Today, June 16, 21 years after he died, his words still resonate, and especially talking about young people in Africa. How would you respond to that quote? And thank you for joining us.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. I think for me, the quote, the part that I like is more the end where he says we need more thinkers. And when we look at Tupac's life, when he said that, he was very young. So from that point of view, he's challenging us at a young age to say to us, you know what, think about the situations, don't see beyond just what you see, and be more analytical. And as young people, question things. And Tupac had a lot of that in his lyrics. He was always questioning things and society and how he sees it and so forth. And I think that message is still relevant, more so that we find ourselves as young people in this continent and the majority. So if we do not think as a majority, who's going to do it?
Right. And thank you. And not just the majority now, that's 65%. Depending on who you're listening to. Some say 65, some say 70 between the ages of 18 and 24. And being on the conservative side, let's even say 65%. And Tupac was 25 when he died. And the quality of work that he did and the influence. And so here we are in South Africa. Today is June 16, the general story around the Soweto riots, the celebration, the commemoration of June 16. And to think that the children that led this were high school students in there. They were less than 25, generally. And so looking at where the trajectory is for Africa, for South Africa, because that was an event that galvanized the whole of Africa. Looking back and saying, here we are on another June 16, how would you assess that vis-a-vis young people in Africa's growth?
You know, for me, it's this day, always as South Africans, we always stop and think and reflect and say, how far are we with our youth? We are in a situation right now in our own country where, youth unemployment is at its highest that it's ever been. But what is also comforting about the youth that we have today is they're the ones that are in the forefront of identity struggles that we have in our country. The roads must fall. They remind us as South Africans that we have this beautiful African heritage.
Right.
They demand it as to why is it not in our curriculum. These young people also remind us of the economic struggles that we still have. And they don't just remind us in conversations and conferences. They go out to the streets. They're in meetings with the government, with stakeholders. They hold the institutions that are supposed to be giving funding to young people account and say, when are you going to give us money and access to money for education? So for me, I'm quite proud of the generation that we have now of young South Africans that are not afraid to face power in the face. Go to Union Building and say fees must fall. Say we need equal access to education, because they understand that education can unlock so much in someone.
No, absolutely. And talking about even education, absolutely, that was the cause of the whole struggle and the fight in '76. And now fast forward even 41 years after, there you were a week ago or thereabout, a week or two ago, speaking at the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Young African Leaders. What was that about? What was that event about?
So there's an initiative that the American government has under the Mandela Washington Fellowship, where they young Africans travel to America for 8 weeks, and they really learn about leadership. They have different leadership tracks, and they're able to fine-tune their skills and so forth, and then come back. And they actually, what I found quite interesting, which is an angle that a lot of people don't know about this program, is that these young people that are participating in this program are actually conscientized to say, what are the African needs?
Right.
What are you doing about it? And it was actually quite beautiful to sit there for the opening, and the regional chairperson was like, I used to believe that there was nothing in Africa, and now I know the heritage that I have as an African.
Right.
So I think there's a really a rather false perception about the program that they're taking young Africans all the way to America to go brainwash them. But these kids are really passionate about making a difference on the continent.
And you did address them.
Yes, I did.
What were you saying to them?
My message for them really was around them as the youth taking back the authority to lead. And when I say that, I say to them that there are spaces that are in society considered spaces for elders. And I am saying to them that you do not have to wait to be an elder to lead. I was using examples of a young Kenneth Kaunda, a defiant, Thomas Sankara, who at 33 ascended to be the president of the then Upper Volta. So I was invoking a spirit to them to say that you are enough to lead. Don't wait for, and my greatest, pet hate is when people say to me that you're a future leader, you're going to lead in the future. No, I'm leading today.
Right,
because
right.
even in everything that I do, I'm leading myself. So it was just reminding them that. And the most other important thing that I talked to them about was regional integration.
Right.
There are 14 countries represented in one room. Solutions must not just be catered for South Africa. When I come up with a solution in my community, I must know the needs of the young boy in Matabeleland North.
Right.
I must know the needs of the boy sitting in Mamabana village in Swaziland.
Right.
So it was conscientizing them to say, intra-Africa trade, the unity of the continent starts with us thinking about our problems as each other's, as opposed to me waiting for some SADC protocol. It's about, even when I decide that I'm going to innovate and create a gasless stove,
Right.
how can that gasless stove be used in the country next to me, within the region, and then use that as a pilot, and then go into like IAC.
Right. Okay.
IAC is East African
Right.
community,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
forth.
But that's quite interesting, because I was going to ask, like, how do we achieve that sort of Africa, of our dreams, of what our older generations had dreamt about? How do we get that, even with the plethora of young people leading in different sectors and segments in Africa today?
You know, my belief is that, and I purely say to people that I am a Pan-Africanist at heart, which means that I do live for a united Africa in whatever that I do. And for me, I always say I cannot give my power over to government or to some institution that I cannot physically touch or feel. What I can do is say to myself, as Lebogang Chaka, I am a businesswoman, for instance, right? So then I can start initiatives, and I can go and consult in other countries. For instance, I was in Zambia the other day doing a strategy facilitation for a company there for their C-suite. That, for me, is what being Pan-Africanist means. It means that I, Lebogang, can still go to Zambia and ensure that I can contribute towards the leadership team, leadership development. So I think what young people need to do is say, what am I? So if you're an IT developer, if you're an app developer, why aren't you getting contracts in different African countries? Why is your market, if you're an entrepreneur sitting in South Africa, and I said it just on Friday at the African Entrepreneurship Council, I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, South Africa is 50 million people. In Nigeria, how many people are there? You know, 180 million. You know what I mean? The most populous country in the world. Why aren't you getting concerned as to how am I going to access the Nigerian market? 50 million Nigerians could buy your product, which is the equivalent of your whole country in South Africa.
Okay. But even on that note now, you know, of where we're talking about a scenario, I mean, which I found a bit, not just a bit, very concerning. And it's about the maize. And some of my friends know that I've talked about this in several places now. That about 2 weeks ago, Kenya was talking about having a shortage of maize for its people. And we know how volatile politics is in a region like Kenya. South Africa, in that same period of time, had a surplus of about 3.5 million tons of the same maize. Now, Kenya goes to Mexico to import, pays forex to these guys in Mexico. South Africa exports the maize to Asia. Now, we want business people to work together on Africa, inter-Africa trade. What can be done to address this kind of lapse? That's just an example. I'm sure there are many others. So you look at Kenya needs the maize, South Africa needs the money. We can keep the money on the African continent, we can keep the jobs, and then you ship those excess surplus, whatever it is, to Asia. It takes much longer to get to Asia than to get to Kenya, but then there's no communication. And of course, as young people, what should we be looking at in this kind of practical scenario where those needs exist on the African continent?
I think, you know, we need to, as Africans, you know, as much as we don't want to, you know, say that there's this notion that, you know, the West and whatnot, but, you know, up to today, the best sort of regional integration has been the EU, you know, but how do they do it? You know, we need to maybe take some learnings from that. And also as Africans, we need to get to a point where we can innovate for ourselves. You know, there's a reason why even in a certain country that you find that regions are not even, you know, integrating. You know, for me, the most important thing is communication. You know, what kind of communication platforms do we have as a continent is what we should be questioning. You know, yes, we walk around with all these mobile devices. There's now clouds, there's apps, there's all these fantastic things. I mean, I don't have an IT background, but logic says that there is communication, it is at the highest that it's been. People are importing cultures through TV, for instance, you know, and so forth. There's music that, you know, transmits. I mean, you find that even in South, like now, when I went to Ghana recently, I actually picked up a Nigerian gospel song that I came back and played for my niece. You know what I mean? So we transfer everything, you know, so much. Governments need to take that principle and say, how do we communicate as a continent? So, you know, one could even take it to that level as to say that the AU, if we regarded as the ultimate body. Why is there no communication platform where if a country has a need like maize, they can input somewhere and a message can be sent throughout the continent? You understand what I mean? So for me, it's more of a communication thing, because my assumption is that if we knew what was happening in each other's countries, then it's the same way that they say you have a closed bid because you've got these suppliers and you give them preference. In a supply chain management system, if they don't have the good, then we go outside. So as if the challenge is really, and for me also as a young person, what you're talking about, it's a challenge to me to say to me, Lebogang, you're a businesswoman. What are you? And you're talking about communication. What is it that you're now going to, when you leave the show, go innovate, to help these governments, because that we cannot have situations like that.
Absolutely, and thank you very much, because that essence of communication is clearly a good way even to go, and even getting young people, especially with communication technologies these days, that can easily be done. Now, still talking about the Mandela Washington Fellowship and then the Young African Leaders Initiative, there's some thoughts in some quarters that when the Americans provide us with those kind of opportunities as Africans to go overseas, to go to America for a period of 6 months or thereabout, become part of a bigger alumni, it's almost like an indoctrination into Western cultures. You're close to them, you've interacted with a couple of them. How would you respond to that?
Like I said, I found that the narrative, and I do applaud one of the fellows from Angola, who stood up and said, this program does pose, a barrier to us, because people have that perception that, you're now an agent of the West. And when you try and get involved and help, you do get pushback from your society.
Right. Yeah.
And, what I told him is that I could only use my story as an example to answer that, which is the fact that I went to a Australian university. Yeah. I then, so I lived in Australia for a period of time. At some point, I then worked for Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, which are traditionally companies that come from what we term the West. Yeah. And at some point I was in the Middle East. I lived in Dubai. I was advising a client there for a couple of months. So, someone like me would be considered an agent of the West, right? But what I said to him is, it's not about that, because when my parents put me on a flight to Australia, they said to me, go get the intelligence and come back and help your people. Yeah. And I said to him that I think that's what you need to keep in mind, that just because you're going to America, just because you're in this program and so forth, what is it that the people are feeling when you're next to them? Are you even in touch with the people's needs? Because I know that, I've never ever been called an agent of the West, because what is it that people feel when you're close to them? Do you understand their needs? Right. And are you understanding why you're even getting involved in those kind of things? We do live in a global village. It cannot be denied. Right. We need to understand each other. And, Samara Machel said it beautifully when he talked about international solidarity, that we need to stand together because it's about developing humanity. So you need to say to yourself, if I'm going to America, what am I bringing back for my fellow Africans?
Okay. All right. Excellent. And I think that's very, very useful words for further thinking and thoughts there. And then that leads me even to ask again and say, so where are our own organizations even to promote and sponsor young Africans, even to aspire to look for solutions for Africa generally? Must we wait for the West to do that for us? Why don't we have our own people, or what can we do?
I think we do. For me, I think we do. I think that, Fred Swanecker started the African Leadership Academy. Just absolutely amazing. There's a young boy that did a windmill in Malawi that went to the African Leadership Academy that provided the village with resources. You know what I mean? I think we do have those organizations, even the African Union itself has the youth volunteer section where they have a program where Africans can then, volunteer to become volunteers, and then they're taught leadership, and then they're taught service and so forth. Right. What I know is that we don't spend enough time as Africans ourselves looking for those positive examples.
Even sharing them and letting people know about them.
We're very quick, even whenever I speak, because I speak a lot on Pan-Africanism, right? there's always someone because I speak on broad topics, you know, not just a specific topic, but everything has to have a touch of really our continent. People want to sit and tell me all these bad narratives about us being the dark continent. I fully say, you know what, I'm sorry. That's not what I am here. I'm not that Pan-Africanist. I'm not there for that. There's enough people that have written books about what is wrong with us. There are continuous people that are Afro-pessimists that want to highlight the bad things and so forth. It is our role, as much as it is my role, to go look for those stories because they do exist.
Right, absolutely. And that's what we do on Africa Diaspora TV, and thanks for staying with us. Our guest, Lebogang Chaka. We'll take a break right now, and when we come back after the break, part of this collaborative efforts that Lebo talks about recently happened in Accra, Ghana. We will be asking her to share some of those experiences and talk to us more about it. So please stay with us, and thank you for being part of the show tonight. We'll be back after this time out.
ADTV, inspired to connect.
This is the Jiggy Jigger Nasty C, and right now you are watching the Planet TV. It's gonna get loud. Your passion, your future, and your now. Planet TV. Own it.
What's up, everybody? I go by the name Chris B, the drummer boy, and I want to say a quick shout out to Planet Radio TV. Happy anniversary, guys. God bless you. Thanks for giving us good tunes back to back. God bless you, Planet Radio TV. One love.
Happy anniversary, PRTV! Love from Jennifer's Diary! So did he announce you guys? Jennifer, kick it too. Signing out.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Spencer. I'm a stand-up comedian. Happy 1 year anniversary, Planet TV on DSTV. It's 1 year now. Keep shining, keep rocking, and I will not stop watching Planet TV. Best to say so. I'm out.
With great power comes great responsibility. Planet TV is putting the power in your fingertips with the coolest live request show ever. Control the playlist, pick your songs, and rock the party. Tweet at Planet Radio TV the song that you'd like to hear, and we'll play it immediately just for you. Catch Planet Power every day at 22 hours. The power is in your fingers. Planet TV. Your future, your passion, your now. Own it.
Welcome to the streets. Planet TV. You better own it.
ADTV, inspired to connect.
Right, thank you and welcome back. Thanks for joining us on the Africa Diaspora TV show. Still with our guest tonight, Lebogang Chaka, the CEO of Afro Visionary Legacy Limited, right? Correct. So thank you for staying with us, Lebo. So Lebo, you were recently at a forum. It was called the International Sheroes Forum. I mean, it was the first time I was hearing something like that. I've heard about heroes, but then this was Sheroes. So I thought to myself, this must be of interest. So would you want to talk to us about that? What was that about?
You know, it's a beautiful platform that two ladies, Maxine and Flossie Manson, have put together. They're two sisters, and their vision is really that we need to be able to create future women leaders in the business space and in the political space. They're in partnership with Joyce Bunder's foundation as well.
Okay.
And the nice thing about this is they have like long-term views in terms of they're going to have an academy, a school where they actually teach women leadership and so forth.
Right.
other beautiful thing about this platform is that really, I mean, one of the ladies there came with literally went and came with the ladies that were, you know, that served tea in her company, and we had everything from, you know, the lady that serves tea in the office to like one of Africa's richest women, Alikicha.
Right. I think we've got some of those photos that, and please, we'd like to have some of those pictures of this interaction in Accra. Yes. Yeah.
So for me, it's a platform where it teaches you to dream as a young person, and you also have a spiritual aspect to it, where they you know, there's a part where there's praise, there's worship. So there's also a spiritual element where your spirit is getting fed. So for me, it was a really beautiful conference, and we also looked at wellness. You know, you cannot lead if you do not understand how to take care of your body.
Right.
You know, how to eat right. So it was all encompassing. And
there we go there. Right. Okay.
It was truly all encompassing.
Okay. Right. And was this just about women generally? Because I think the emphasis on sheroes, was it just for women?
It wasn't just about women. That was the nice thing, the narrative about it. We had a he for she session. So, you know, the UN Women runs a campaign with the he for she, where, you know, men really do participate in the women's space. And I've always said that I am a firm believer of gender mainstreaming, where it's both men and women on the table, and having discussions really about how do women, you know, lead and how do they go forward. So we had sessions, we had 2 CEOs from banks, and we had very prominent gentlemen coming onto the stage and really, you know, answering some of the questions that, you know what, there's a woman that you sponsored to go higher. What is it that made you fall in love with this woman? Not in the actual sense, but like why is it that made you sponsor this woman to go further?
Right.
You know, and there were certain things that, you know, we had to have real conversations. I mean, one of the gentlemen was like, it's not like we don't want to promote you, but also plan when to have your children. You know, you can't just have children every year for 5 years, and then when you're not promoted, you know, we're not saying don't have children, plan to have your children. You know, so it was very tough conversations. It wasn't like one of those how should I say it, like just a pie in the sky. It was real issues that were being dealt with, to say, why is it that also when there's political quotas, why is it that we can't even find women to you know, to fill those positions? What is it that even the women that are in politics are not doing to pull those other women up? How do we pull each other up as women? It was really lovely, intricate conversations that we were having, and real conversations.
Wow. And your experience with the richest woman in Africa, right? Is that in Africa in the world?
I think she's number 2
Number
now.
2 in the world, right? Yeah. Mrs.
No,
Yes.
Yeah.
What was that like for you in terms of when you look at people who are that passionate about people development, even being in a forum like that with you as a young African? What was that for you?
So for me, sitting there and being able to listen to Mrs. Alikicha being interviewed, what I took from her is, you know, she kept saying to us that when people say no, keep going back. You know, keep asking for answers, you know, keep knocking at those doors, make follow-ups, you know. And she was explaining to us, like, even with her oil license, how, you know, there were so many setbacks before she got the oil license. And then she was, you know, she agreed with these people and then they let her down. And then, you know, then she agreed with the other people. And then she was also another important thing that I picked up from her is that she made certain decisions, you know, like she wanted to go study fashion, for instance, but she knew that she wanted to keep her family together. So she went for 1 year to the UK and did some other courses back in Nigeria as opposed to 3 years. So there was the whole family aspect as well. As a woman who's growing up, who is ambitious, who has dreams of their own, how do you balance between the kids and her sending her kids to school? And also she emphasized very much about your spirituality. You know, she's Christian, and she kept referring to her spirituality in a Christian sense, you know. So for me, the message was that, you know, whatever it is that you believe in, that needs to center you and anchor you and get you through those moments. So it was quite a beautiful conversation, because it was, like I said, the conference was very holistic. It wasn't just tell us how you made billions. It was about the other side, you know, how do you survive and how do you keep going in the face of, you know, adversity.
And the challenges there.
Yes.
Right. Okay, excellent. And I believe that it was also on that trip you also had your experiential moments at the schools for the past presidents in Accra. What was that like for you? Or tell us a bit about that.
So for me, Ghana was really, as a child that has really, always gone and preached Pan-Africanism. And, I've been on countless, stages articulating this Pan-Africanism. For me, it was very important. Like going to Ghana was a spiritual pilgrimage for me, if I may say so, just really purely on everything that I've read about Kwame. And when I got there, people...
So Kwame Nkrumah being the father of the pioneer of Pan-Africanism.
Yes.
And there you were in his territory, as it were.
So it was really, for me, it was something really big, Ghana has been a bucket list. Ethiopia was my first bucket list, and I managed to go because it was never colonized. So for me, Ghana was like another bucket list country. It was really a beautiful feeling as a Pan-Africanist. And people were like, no, go to, Kwame is buried here. And I was like, I don't want to go there. I was like, I don't want to go where Kwame's lying in his tombstone. I'm like, I want to go to where he was when he was alive.
Right.
When he was still, when kids are in high school, primary kind of thing, they have this innocence. And I wanted to go walk the corridors that Kwame walked when he was still innocent. And I wanted to know, why is this the school that has produced so many African presidents? Why? And, ministers and so forth. And I get there and I realized that the first thing that they do before they start their day is they go to chapel.
Wow.
So for me, what I interpreted that as is whatever your spirituality is, if you want to be a great leader, you need to anchor your spirit.
Right.
And that is what I found in that school, And as we were walking, before we got to the administration block, then the gentleman that was giving me the tour said to me, these are some of the teachers, and they're all pastors.
Wow.
But 4 different pastors from 4 different Christian denominations.
Okay. Teaching at the school there.
Exactly.
Wow.
Which shows how anchored they are in spirituality.
And that has always been the tradition, even from the days of the past presidents.
And I mean, so many wars are fought on, you're a Presbyterian, I'm a Lutheran, I'm a Catholic, and here we have 4 different denominations of Christianity united to raise leaders in a school. And the discipline that the children are being taught. I mean, it's absolutely amazing,
Right.
So for me, I also saw submission being taught in the children. So for you to lead, you have to be able to submit.
Right.
For me, it was one of those moments in Ghana where I was like, wow. Yeah.
Wow, we'll never have enough of this. And thanks for sharing that. And before we leave, I know there was also the forum that you were part of, or you guys organized on the business forum, doing business across in Africa, or in Africa. You want to talk to us about that?
So my company hosts a forum. I'm trying to do it every 2 months.
Okay.
And what I'm pushing for is I want a truly Pan-African business forum. So I had my first one, and I was glad to say that it was well attended. It had about 8 African countries represented there. The speakers, one was from Zimbabwe, but he came under the capacity of Anchor Capital, where he was talking about growth opportunities, the stock market, the 26 stock markets in
Zimbabwe,
in Africa.
Oh, okay. All right.
And he also gave advice to the companies that are not so that haven't been operating for long. There's an alternative stock market, so it was practical information.
Okay.
So that's what my business forum is about. It's about the practicalities.
And this is meant to be every 2 months.
Yes.
Okay.
And the second speaker was from Rwanda, and she has like 13 years experience, and she's worked in Rwanda. She's now opened a practice in South Africa. She's worked in the East African communities. So she was saying practical information, like it takes 6 hours to open up
a business in Rwanda.
Yeah. She was telling us things like where Rwanda's trajectory is going. How they're going to be like the Singapore of Africa, financial hub. So people now walk out of the room knowing what are the opportunities in that particular country. We had people in the audience saying that, well, there's a South African built plane that can be used by Rwanda Air, and she was like, okay, she can facilitate a meeting. Then we had Namdi, who was from Standard Bank, Nigerian, and he was talking about the innovation and the books that he's written around innovation.
Wow.
Very practical things that are happening on the ground.
Now you need to come around and show us more around what's going on with this business forum in there. But thank you very much, Lebo, for joining us, and I'll just like to end it there and say thank you for sharing your thoughts across Africa, businesses, speaking to the Mandela Washington Fellows who are growing up to be the African leaders of our time. I don't want to say future leaders of Africa anymore now. They're already leading now. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it for tonight's episode, and I want to say thank you for joining us, for being part of the interactions tonight on the Africa Diaspora TV show. I'd like to say thank you very much to our guest, Lebogang Chaka, and we trust that when we call upon you again, you'll be here to share more thoughts on what this Africa integration needs to happen. But we leave tonight with the advice, the counsel you've given unto us, that we need to put together a database or an app or some kind of communication platform where African countries can share what excess products they have and what the surplus or the gaps are. So on that note, we'd like to say thank you, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you right next time on the same channel, on the same time, and thank you for being part of the Africa Diaspora TV show tonight.